Good afternoon, everybody. First, a quick bit of housekeeping. We'll have some questions at the end of the talk. If you come up with some brilliant ideas in the middle of it, you can tweet them using the hashtag TV controllers, and I'm told they'll appear here in amongst lots of other stuff, and I will try and pick them out. Other than that, I would like to say in advance a big thank you for Zai Bennett for even being here, given that 2 weeks ago?
10 days.
10 days ago, he was in the back of a taxi with his pregnant wife and delivered his own child. I'm trying to
It's actually relatively easy. I'm doing classes later.
I'm trying to come up with some gag about delivering quality first, but...
we had lots of name suggestions like Addison and Lee, Joe, and someone said, did I say halo when he came out?
Very good. In any case, so I think we should try and cut him some slack, given he must be absolutely exhausted.
So not dissimilar to everyone in the audience, but for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Not alcohol-induced, just, sleep deprivation. Let's talk about BBC Three. It's been a very successful year for you. Do you want to just take us through some of the standout achievements, some of the numbers?
Okay, in numbers terms, BBC Three is the most watched digital channel in the UK for the hours it's on, for individuals and for our 16 to 34 age demographic, which is our target audience. BBC Three is, our mission is never afraid to try new things, and that means innovating in all the genres that we commission in, and we do commission in every single genre. In numbers terms, we're the most watched. We've got a huge reach, far above than any of our competitors. We won 2 BAFTAs last year, and not just, the Crafts Award. But they're all valid and good BAFTAs, and you'd still get a statue. But we won Best Factual Series and Best Comedy Programme. And the year before, we won Best Factual Series and Best Drama Series. So we've been winning really big awards up there, and I think the quality of the content that we make on BBC Three is indistinguishable now between that of digital and terrestrial television. We also won a Foreign Press Association award for Best Documentary about a Somalia documentary, Broadcast Award for a documentary drama called My Murder. So it's been a hugely creative, successful year and a viewing successful year in terms of actually having a huge viewing share.
Okay, and let's start, shall we, by having a look at the show reel so we can see what that means in terms of programming.
Ever been to a live drag show?
Happy people sell, miserable bastards don't.
How rude.
I've got drunk, but I haven't got a girl yet.
But now I'm getting my own boobs, so it's pretty cool. Found gonorrhea.
Wow.
I drive so much better when I'm a little bit tipsy.
I want it to be an aggressive wrestling wedding.
I want to eat the meat, but I can't eat a whole hat,
It's not to rock.
I think this is important for people to really get into the thick of it.
It's very easy to completely forget about who I am when I'm in the army.
One of the most scariest things I've ever been through.
That's me. It took me 10 hours to die.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving.
You were there when Lisa was killed.
You killed her, she wasn't killed.
The ritual must be performed by a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost.
I can't think of a better way to die than watching this. And this is a show which clambers into one of the murkiest places known to man.
What's it claimed by you?
I'm Carmen.
A real Carmen.
The Yorkshire version.
Let's go in here and have a wonderful evening of comedy and rock and roll. This is the show that makes a big deal about the little things in life.
It's just not very me, though, is it, Law?
Well, that's not very Shelley, but she doesn't mind.
Even lads have a sensitive side, so...
I can't concentrate if you're watching me. Go on.
What are you all looking at? He's got really babyish handwriting.
Are you one of the guys who did really well or was rewarded for failure?
Well, why has he come dressed as a pussy?
Shout cat and chase an imaginary cat.
Cat!
We prepare food on this surface. We had couscous!
Can you just go and see if that first aid box has got any Barocca in it?
Auf Wiedersehen.
So, Zai, you've been in the job for about 2.5 years now. When you see that tape, does that feel like your BBC Three? Is it everything you want it to be?
Pretty much getting there, yeah. I think the first year to 18 months of me joining was very much about trying to focus, and this is slightly oversimplification, but focusing on comedy and getting our comedy on track and making sure we were the home of brand new, innovative British comedy. So shows like, and having a mixed economy of what we do in comedy. So in sitcoms, things like Bad Education and Cuckoo, both quite broad, big, getting 1 million viewers each, averaging across the series. So really big, important series. Some great, very young focused comedy like Some Girls, having quality throughout as well, particularly. I think we've got some amazing directors and writers working across the BBC Three comedy. Shows like Bad Alts, getting a show like Bluestone 42 to air was, I think, quite an achievement. A sitcom set in a British IED unit in Afghanistan while our troops are still over there was no mean feat to get that launched and on air without a big furore. And it also, most importantly, that it was actually bloody funny and much appreciated by those in those jobs. So getting the sitcoms back on track, I think, was really important. I think we did that last year, and in the autumn of last year, that really came to fruition with and was acknowledged by the viewing figures we got for some of those comedies. And then also adding to that comedy entertainment. So we've focused our entertainment very heavily now on comedy entertainment. So shows like The Revolution Will Be Televised, which was BAFTA award-winning, incredibly... well, it was described as the most dangerous show in 10 years. I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but it's a pretty nice, I think it's a really great place for BBC Three to be in satire, somewhere we hadn't been for a long time. Sweat the Small Stuff, a panel show, again, something that can really have a conveyor belt of new talent come through that show. So you can have lots of people on in the panels, and you can bring on comedians. We've got Live at the Electric going really well now, which is very much a new talent vehicle, and people have gone from that to be commissioned into other pilots and then some full series. People like Nick Helm was on Live at the Electric, did a pilot for us in the comedy feeds, and now has got a full series called Uncle, which comes on, will be coming to air in January. So getting comedy right was really important in comedy entertainment. And then in the last year, it's been about getting the documentary series, importantly, which are, we hadn't done as many of those in the past. We've done quite a lot of one-offs, but we hadn't done documentary series. So The Call Centre, People Like Us, big, important, well-made, by brilliant filmmakers, spending really big chunks of time with our casts, really wonderful storytelling. So getting those right and getting some formats to air that succeeded. So Barely Legal Drivers being a format that I was really proud of and thought did really well for us. So that's what the last 12 months has been about, getting those factual going.
So you talk about getting things right. Does that imply that when you joined, a lot of things were wrong?
Oh, the predecessor was an absolute muppet. No, my new boss, Danny, had funny... I think it's fair to say that the comedy there hadn't been any... There'd been a lot of comedies on air for a long time. So a lot of comedies got to 6, 8, 9 series. And they'd run their course. It was just naturally, that happened to be the timing that I joined, that they had run their course. And in the first year, the factual programming I inherited was all on fire and fantastic. So it was a matter of keeping that going, but getting the comedy rebooted. And then, as that factual has sort of run its course, we've had to, it's a very hungry beast, BBC Three. We constantly want new programming. It's not a channel where you will get many series going to, 9, 10, 11 series of things. We're all about the new.
And do you feel you've thrown off, and I'm sure you're tired of being reminded of all the stupidly named programmes, but do you think you've thrown off the idea of BBC Three as a sort of the Club 1830 of broadcasting?
I hope so. I think so. I mean, but the reality of it is that it's a mixed economy on BBC Three. There is entertainment. There are entertaining factual shows on there. I'm very proud of Sun Sex and Suspicious Parents, and we've got Snow Sex coming up later on this year, where we'll be doing the same thing in the snow. I think it's a great series. I think Tell the Bride is one of the best series. It's probably the best wedding show on television. So it's good. We're there to reinterpret Reithianism, so inform, educate, and entertain. The entertain is in that bit, so you're allowed to do that as well. And our mission is about. I nick a quote from Janice, and Janice was quoting Hugh Carlton-Green, a former Director General, which is make the good popular and the popular good. And I think that's what we try to do, but for a young adult audience.
And how much is the focus on the age? Are you always thinking about, 16 to 34, 16 to 30, what do they want, what do they need?
It's an attitudinal thing as opposed to a very specific age thing, because, that's a massive 16 to 34 is a huge age range, and they're all very different. But there are some things that bring them together. You know, they are, and I think you'll find through lots of our shows, be it the comedies and the factual pieces and the factual entertainment pieces, it's about coming of age. Because between those years, you are growing into being an adult and taking on responsibility. So lots of our shows, your wedding, your first holiday together, learning to drive and get a car, you know, they are based in those areas.
Okay, let's go and have a look back over some of the shows from the last 12 months and see how you've put that into practice. And we're going to start with a clip from Bad Education, which, as you probably know, is a Jack Whitehall sitcom set in a school.
Sometimes there's no substitute for a little bit of manpower.
Just drop. Oh, it's a stubborn one. Oh, shit!
I haven't actually put my money in it.
Oh.
Now, that's an example of a funny show, but when I watch it, I always think, why is it on BBC Three and not on Channel 4 or 2? Can you say what it is that particularly makes that show right for your channel?
Because we commissioned it. They both probably wish they did. You know, Jack is a 22-year-old stand-up comedian and writer. It's a first piece he's written, a strict scripted piece he's written, and that's perfect for BBC Three. We are all about new British talent, but equally that means we can also be a home where people who are doing well in their field can try something different. So the first piece he's written, it's about school. Lots of our audience are leaving or still in some cases still in forms of education. Something they all know and well. But most importantly, it's bloody funny is the main thing. And it's when you look at the class that's in there, the themes and the stories that they bring up are they'd be well trodden and well known by our audience.
And it's been recommissioned?
Yeah, the new series starts in 2 weeks' time, I think, on Tuesday at 10. It premieres this Tuesday on iPlayer first, 7 days before it goes on the linear channel. Yeah, and it's coming back, and that's going to be. Well, I've seen the first 4, and it's amazing.
And is it problematic when you've got a star on the rise, a show that's popular? Does he come back with the second series and say, "Oh, I want to go to BBC One"? Did BBC One come to poach him? I'm always wondering. The idea of having an incubator channel obviously means that they grow up.
There's lots of talk about BBC Three as an incubator, and there is a role there for us to play, but it's more about the sort of star of a star going on to do a different project on BBC One, or a writer or a director going on to do a different project on one of the other BBC channels, as opposed to lock, stock and barrel, a whole show moving. Sure, shows have moved in the past, and I'm not ruling out that they won't move again in the future, because that's great for me, because that means that the show's been that successful, it's become that big and broad that it goes on to BBC One or BBC Two. So I'm really hopeful that other ones do that, because then it frees up the money for me to be able to then go and find the next new thing, which is great.
And is it not at all galling, though? I mean, if you found the person and you said you commissioned it, you kind of made it, and then up they go.
I think it's nice to get enough of your juice out of it while you've got it. So we'll have had this will be the second season of Bad Education. You know, it's very likely there'll be one more, I'd have thought. So that's a good amount to have done for BBC Three, and to have also, I think, for me with comedies particularly, if by the end of season 1 it's creatively doing what you want it to do. I'm not so worried about the viewing figures. It's about, and that's the beauty of working at the BBC. We don't sell commercials. We don't have to do any of that grubbiness. We can be wholly invested in the ideas. And if at the end of season 1 in a comedy, we're happy with it as a team and creatively we like what we're doing, we're very much more likely to proceed to season 2. End of season 2, for me, is a time when you really need to sort of be starting to engage the viewership as well. Otherwise, you can't just keep making shows for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's we want to make shows that people watch, but we're also happy to incubate.
Have you seen Big School on BBC One? Did that make you think, recognise that?
I haven't watched it yet, no, but I hear it's very good.
Oh, of course it is.
But there's lots of things. We've got Some Girls, which is also set in a school. Being set in a school isn't only the preserve of BBC Three, and I'm sure they're very different.
And is the comedy slate in general? You said you've kind of moved on to thinking about factual now. Does that mean the comedy slate is where you want it? Anyone here who's thinking of pitching your comedy, don't bother, you're all right.
We're sorted. No, it's a very hungry beast. We've got some we've got some great shows that launched across the last year and have launched at the beginning of this year. Lots of them are coming back again, but there is still room for more scripted comedy. We've just commissioned a new one called Siblings about the sort of worst ever brother and sister. That'll be coming to air beginning of next year. Uncle, I mentioned earlier with Nick Helm in. He's an uncle, brilliantly titled. We spent a long time on that one. So there's definitely room for more scripted comedy and more comedy entertainment on the channel, yeah, because you get through lots of it. We make an awful lot of scripted comedy on BBC Three. I think probably more than any of the other channels that I can think of.
So let's talk a little bit about comedy, and we're going to have a clip now. This is from, I think you mentioned it already, it's Sweat the Small Stuff, which is the panel show fronted by Nick Grimshaw.
Have you ever sent a dirty picture message? Now, the way this is going to work, we're going to see the person swear on this, the quiff of me. To tell the absolute truth and nothing but the truth. It's a new Bible, if you will, for the modern age. All you guys have to do is decide if the person has or hasn't sent a dirty picture message. So you're going to go first, Ricky's team. Let's begin. Here we go. First one, please.
We swear on the quiff of me to tell the absolute truth.
Have you ever sent a dirty picture message?
Ricky's team.
So she had, he had. Not to him.
The picture telling 1,000 words. Sweat the Small Stuff was down 20% on the slot average. Does that make it a failure for you?
Oh, shit, I didn't know that. No, not at all. Sweat the Small Stuff is, we commissioned 2 series up front because I'm a massive believer, especially in a show like that, they take time to bed in. They take time for the audience to get used to them. They also take a bit of time working through them with the production team and the commissioning team, where you're going to go with them. You start off with an idea and you go with what works and you ditch the things that don't as you go on. By the end of Series 1, I think we more or less know where we want to be with Series 2. We're going to come back. There'll be some changes and tweaks to it. I mean, it's an old, in my former life, I commissioned Celeb Juice. That took 3 series before anybody watched it.
Yeah.
I know these things take time. It averaged over 400,000 viewers, which is a pretty good number of individuals. It's very young, which is brilliant. And I personally, I think Nick is an absolute star. He is definitely a flavour, and you know, people love him, people hate him. But I'd much rather have a distinct flavour on the channel than be bland.
What wasn't working? Given you're at the end of the first series, you're saying you're going to change a few things.
I don't want to go into every detail of what we're retooling on the show. I think focusing even more on the fact that we have audience interaction is the thing we're going to do with Sweat the Small Stuff. It's one of the only panel shows that really has loads of the audience in. So Sweatbox as a feature which has a member of the audience comes and tells you about what they're sweating about, and the panel then give them advice. That quiff of Grimmy moment really worked. So making that come to the very front as a sort of USP and a big difference in the marketplace of panel shows.
How do you come to... I mean, it's very important to get the right front man for something like that, particularly with the audience he will bring with him. What was the process to get Nick Grimshaw? Why did you decide he's the guy?
Well, we did... Talkback, who make the show, invited us to a run-through of a thing. I can't even remember what it was called then. It might have been called Sweat Small Stuff. I think it was called something like that. And they wanted us to look at Ricky and Melvin, and who they thought were really great. And they'd had this idea for a show, and it was a bit Family Fortunes-y. And myself and Sean, the commissioner, went along and said, "OK, we'll go and watch it." And we went to this. And the day before, they didn't actually have someone to host it, so they phoned up, Jamie, our scheduler, because none of us were in the office, we're all off delivering babies or something. And and he had a choice of 2 people, and he chose Nick because we hadn't seen Nick for a while. We all went to it, watched it, and at the end of it just went, God, he was amazing. Nick was on fire, running the whole room, just gag after gag, getting great stuff out of people, and we just went, let's build it around him. We've got the bones of something here. Let's go take it back to basics, but put Nick at the middle of it and build it out. And Nick is an obsessive about things for 24 hours, and then he drops them. He can't help himself. He's that kind of person, and that is why Sweating the Small Stuff is brilliant for him, because he's obsesses about something, and then it's not. But it's kind of tiny little things.
And did you appoint him after he'd been chosen for the Radio 1 show?
This is all before he got the breakfast gig. Yeah. So that's just the stars aligned, and we were lucky in that respect.
And what does the fact that he's lost listeners on Radio 1, does that affect this? Are you suddenly stuck with a guy and you think, oh, actually, maybe he wasn't the right guy? Maybe he doesn't connect with the youth like we thought he might?
No, not at all. Because for us, in terms of the amount of people watching it, it's a good amount. In terms of the profile, it's a great profile. It's really young. And creatively, we just love what he's doing.
And are these sort of comedy end pieces, I mean, they're very hard to get right. Are they also something you're really looking for? Are they sort of, are they the goose that lays a golden egg?
They can be a goose that lays a golden egg in terms of, unlike a scripted show, which you might get 6, 8, even 10, a push with British writing. These you can make in bigger numbers, which is great for your schedule in terms of being a channel manager. But it's more about having a sort of a nicely balanced ecology across BBC Three. So somewhere that comedians and pop stars and personalities can come and be funny is great. Equally, we want to have a balance of beautifully written and acted various sitcoms, from Him and Her to Bad Education to Some Girls. So it's just about having that balance, really.
But it's coming back because you commissioned 2 series, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I've got every hope of it being on there for a good few years. I think it's got to the place by end of Series 1, and what we're going to do in Series 2, I'm really happy with it.
Okay. Let's move on to another clip. This is from the documentary, which was part of your mental health season, called Don't Call Me Crazy.
My dad stuck a sign on my door that says, "Do not disturb, already disturbed." And there's my wall of handprints that I did.
Emma has been in hospital for 5 weeks, but she is now managing to control her OCD impulses more and more.
Say I was in the lounge, I'd have to do 7 steps across the lounge, 7 steps down the hall, then 7 steps to my bed, and if I couldn't make it in them 7 steps, then I had to start again. And then once I was in bed, I had to touch one side 7 times, another side 7 times, turn over 7 times, touch the wall 7 times.
Okay, so we know that Channel 4 did a mental health season, rather bad luck, in 2012. What I'm wondering is, why is this a BBC programme, and what does it say about BBC Three?
Part of our I sort of distill Never Afraid to Try New Things into even simpler messages. Make our audience laugh, make our audience think, give our audience a voice. Making them think and giving them a voice is what a lot of our factual programming is about. This season is a really, it's a really tough subject, mental health could be, but everyone has mental health. And certainly most people know someone who's affected by a mental health issue. So it's very universal. When you look at it, you can see as a headline, God, that's going to be heavy going. What I love about what we do with BBC Three and the way we approach our documentaries particularly is that we take these difficult subjects and we deliver them normally through an unmediated way. So it's letting our audience talk straight back to themselves, and it is very normally joyous, uplifting. There's some incredibly hard emotional moments in that sort of documentary, but that is, that's what some 16, those girls are sort of in their late teens are going through, and that being on telly means that it really helped a lot of other young sufferers from various mental illnesses. The whole season I thought was agenda setting, just fantastic. Some of the highest quality stuff we've ever done. Don't Call Me Crazy is outstanding. We had a wonderful documentary from Rachel Bruno, which is we got through got to grips with how she was dealing with her father's mental illness. So you'd see how it affects the family. We did a teen OCD camp, taking some OCD sufferers who hadn't had success in the UK being treated to a more extreme form of therapy in the US, which was again joyous seeing them at the end of it having some success there. I just think it's really important that we are flying the flag for our audience, and that's what these sort of shows do. But it's also really important that we tackle these difficult subjects. Seasons on BBC Three are incredibly important because it's great for us to be able to pull these programmes together, promote them and get audiences to them. The other thing about virtually all the shows I've just mentioned in that season is they all got really big audiences. People came to them and watched them, and we got a huge amount of feedback from the mental health charities and from individuals just saying how incredibly helpful this had been.
You mentioned seasons. How and why do you decide to do one? Is it because, suddenly I've got a load of things, look, they're all on a similar subject, off we go, or is it slightly more strategic than that?
Well, it's 2 ways normally. Normally we are either inspired by a show. So we did a crime season last year, which was inspired by the documentary drama My Murder, which we were pitched, and we said, this is such an amazing show, we'd like to do more. And we did the mental health season. We set out and said we would like to tackle mental health for our audience. Then we worked very hard with a huge number of mental health charities, just making sure we tackled the right subjects, the right afflictions, and that we were doing them in the right way. talked to the production community about what sorts of shows we'd like to make, then went through commissioning rounds to get to those shows. That you know, just Don't Call Me Crazy was filmed for a year, and then this whole season took somewhere nearly, well, probably 18 months to 2 years to be put together. So we're doing another one that we've sort of designed. It's been inspired actually by a show called Life and Death Row, which is about, so we're looking at justice about in the UK and the US, and this is a show looking at the US death row inmates, where most of the over half the inmates are all are there on death row who committed found guilty of a crime when they're in their 20s. So again, exactly our audience. And we've then added some more shows to that series, which will be part of a justice season. So we're looking at another docudrama about domestic abuse, but amongst teens. And we've also got a documentary with Stacey Dooley investigating that area as well. So something about a show about prisons and deaths in prisons, which again is predominantly affected by young men.
And who is is it you who's keeping an eye on the balance between this being riveting to watch and thus entertaining, and it being actually responsible broadcasting? That's, for example, that girl there is treating her responsibly, because it probably comes under your aegis, I imagine, to make sure that the balance is right.
It's that responsibility is borne by the commissioner, the executive producers, the production teams. We all share that. We have incredibly stringent protocols in place, and care of our contributors is absolutely paramount, and especially mental health. The mental health programs was incredibly carefully treated. You know, working with their doctors, what we can and can't show and should and shouldn't show, and with them and their parents, because very, very painstakingly done.
Do you have to deal with what's becoming an increasing problem, which is that when younger people are seen on TV, they can be subject to abuse on Twitter? Even putting them up there sometimes can be not doing them a favour when they go back to school or the hospital.
In that series of shows, we actually found the reverse, and that there's what happened on Twitter was we warn all of our contributors across the board about, there's the talk of doom about, you could get attacked or ridiculed, or look at, do this with your Facebook, do this on your Twitter, be careful.
So they get this talk of
doom. Yeah. It's part of the normal protocols of making a show, but particularly with the mental health one. And what we actually found with the mental health one is the online world is incredibly supportive, which was brilliant. Actually, there was a little bit of derision, which was really quickly stamped out by a massive amount of positivity, which I think is all because of the quality of the shows that were made.
Okay. We've got another clip now. This is from People Like Us. We'll show the clip and then you can give some of the background to the series.
Smell nice.
Come here.
Smell nice.
Jake, stop a minute.
Smell nice.
Today, wedding bells are in the air at Jamie's flat.
I hate dressing up like this. There's only ever 4 rings when it comes to fucking marriage. Engagement ring, eternity ring, marriage ring, and fucking suffer ring. Wedding's my ass.
So, as I say, what led to this series? How did it come about?
God, just cast my mind back. We were looking for a documentary series, and again, we're trying to give a voice to our audience. And Dragonfly pitched this idea, which was basically looking at an estate in Harper Hay as a precinct, and giving a voice to a set of contributors who we didn't normally see on television when we commissioned it. We made sure that we're absolutely, through the whole filming and the production process and the way we edited it, we're on the side of our contributors. It's quite a positive. It's incredibly hard growing up for them in the circumstances they live in, which are really tough. But they are funny, they're joyous, and they make the best of the situation they're in. And that was why we made it. And
you say you're on their side. You'll be aware there was a lot of criticism of this show, saying that it was poverty porn, or to an extent you weren't showing the people who are watching BBC Three, you were showing them someone they could sneer at. How do you answer those criticisms?
See, that series didn't get that criticism. I think that was much more for other series on other channels. This one, generally, most of the reviews were really even-handed and said that it was a really positive, and anyone who watched it, especially who's watched the whole thing, would hopefully feel that as well.
Why do you think people's reactions are so strong to this thing? Because the whole poverty porn thing has become a bit of an issue.
It's all about the way that you make it, and the way we've made that, when we made Growing Up Poor, which we also a 2-part series from Brian Woods, which is phenomenal. We are, again, we're trying not to get, there's no one there influencing what they're going to say, or it's our contributors in their own words. And that's the most important thing. And if you get the right people telling their stories, then that is the most powerful thing you can possibly have. And it is bloody hard growing up for some people. And I don't think I think we should reflect that, as well as have Sun Sex and Don't Tell the Bride and Our War on it. It's about having a mixed economy across what we do on BBC Three.
But do you totally rebut the argument that there's something funny about watching basically a guy who's very different and a lot poorer than a lot of the people who are watching it make a bit of a fool of himself?
I think there's something funny about watching someone who puts deodorant on over their clothes.
Do you not do that?
It doesn't. It's just normal, isn't it? And then there's some funny people. The Wishy Washy Family are incredibly funny. The dad in it's brilliant. But it's the good humour he has and goes about his daily life that I really enjoy about the series. At the same time as we are getting information, lots of information about how they cope with the situations they're in, which is that they haven't got a huge amount of money, but they're making the most of what they do. And they, one of them says in People Like Us, yeah, it's a shithole, but we can call it a shithole, but you can't, and but we love it,
And so, in the old public service versus entertainment argument, you would argue that does serve the
That's
public to see that.
oodles of public service. That's giving people you don't normally see on telly a voice.
Okay. Talking about people you don't normally see on telly, the next clip is from the call centre.
In 3 words, I'd sum up the call centre as fun, enjoyable, I can't think of a 3rd word.
George's a good guy. He's a dependable, salt of the earth type fellow. In football, you need somebody to perform miracles out of things, but then you have to have the dog in the midfield to do all the work as well and to slog. George is a slogger.
So, 3 words to describe the call centre.
Oh, that's too tricky to do, isn't it? It's almost impossible. It's all about Nev.
And that seems to me to be exactly right. When a show like this comes to you, does someone say, look, I found this guy, the show's all about a character, here's your character? How was it pitched to you? That
was BBC Wales, and the Commissioner, Sam Anstis, came in and said, here we go, I've got this taster, let's have a look. We bung it on. What actually we had done before that was we'd briefed out, we'd said as a channel we were looking for workplace-based documentary series. We were trying to get into lots of different employers. We really wanted to get under the skin of being employed and being young in the UK. From that, we ended up with the call centre, a new format called The Insider, which starts in 2 weeks' time, and Shop Life. And this one, then they went away to shoot a taster. It was I think they tried to get into 2 different call centres, and this is the only one that took cool. BBC. Yes. And Nev met them himself, and once they met Nev, they loved him and thought this is it. Brought us the tape. Sam and the team worked really hard crafting the tape, and as soon as we saw it, we went, yes, let's make it. We must make it. But from that point on, to make 6 hours of television, it's not just about a buffoonery from a David Brent style boss. First of all, he's not that stupid, or he is that charismatic, but he's not that stupid because he's a multimillionaire, he's making a really thriving business. He's employing 700 16 to 34-year-olds in his business. And telling their story is where you've got the sort of the meat of those documentaries. But he as a character in that just brings such a lightness and humour to it. And then in terms of the making of the show, there's little things like whenever you see Nev is in there, we use classical music, whereas other moments when you have the other younger contributors, we move more contemporary music. It's been really beautifully, carefully crafted, and it was a massive hit, and that'll be back next year, and we get a Christmas special, so Nev in a Santa suit, probably riding a reindeer or something.
Nev spin-off, I was thinking, maybe?
I think I've spoken to Nev a few times.
If Grimmy doesn't work, surely
just Nev. I met Nev for the first time, and I was like, oh, what do you do? I'm the controller of BBC Three. That means I'm in charge of the channel and decide what we show and stuff. He goes, controller, eh? Fat controller. Cheers, Nev.
So that's the end of the call centre.
He is, so he's unfortunately can't come back. No, he's exactly like that. He's not put on for the cameras. That's the other thing. It's a documentary. We're not setting anything up. He is like that, and that's the reason his business thrives, is because he knows that it actually works as well. It's not just done for effect.
But fair to say, and just finally, anyone who is coming to you with a documentary set in a workplace like you asked for. Actually, as you said, that's all about Nev. So really, it's about the character more than the actual setting. Or?
Virtually all documentaries about casting and who is in it and what stories are we trying to tell. So it's incredibly important. With the Don't Call Me Crazy, it was incredibly important. We got really strong characters in there that we were telling, and a range of different afflictions as well. But yeah, so it's all about the casting. If it was just Nev and you didn't have any engaging young people there as well, people wouldn't have come back week after week. They've got the gag and they'd have got off.
I'd have come back for Nev. Let's talk about
after you meet him.
Bluestone 42, which is a comedy, the army comedy we were mentioning earlier.
Oh. Sorry, it's just, well, you did say you'd drop everything.
It's very good.
Look, I just wanted to see whether you were all right.
So you waited till I was just out of the shower?
What? I had no idea that you were just out of the shower. Explosions can affect people in weird ways. Just wanted to see if you were okay.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I am. I'm a little bit on edge.
She's just got out of the shower. Going downstairs. Oh.
So you've had a very good year in sitcom with Cuckoo. What have you been doing right? Why are these working for you?
We've got a great commissioning team, and they are bringing stuff that is brilliantly formed, and they're working with great writers and in many cases some of the best directors. Cuckoo and Ben Taylor, I think, is a stunning piece, beautifully directed. I think Adam Miller's directed Some Girls, is brilliantly directed, but written incredibly well. We've just got a great comedy team who are really on the money. They know what they're doing. They get BBC Three. You know, there's a range to what we do. There's some things that are very much more gag heavy. There's some more observed, gentle pieces like Him and Her, which is beautifully observed, but equally can be really cutting and funny. And then there's something like Bad Adults, which is gag, studio sitcom, so a very different flavour to, and that's going to be returning again next year as well. So, they've not all worked, but the vast majority are coming back.
There was some comment, I think, from one or other MPs about how it wasn't in good taste to be running a comedy at a time when we still had troops in Afghanistan. Was that slight red rag to a bull territory for you? Do you actually want a bit of controversy around the comedy to get some attention?
When we commissioned the show on the basis of 2 scripts and a run-through of 2 scripts with most of the actors in place who ended up being in the series. And it was just funny, really funny, good and squaddy humour. And I think the justification for making that comedy is that we've got the award-winning Our War on the channel. We've done a current affairs piece about post-traumatic stress disorder, Haunted by Helmland on the channel. We did a whole thing about training of young soldiers at Catterick on the channel. We've done the factual side, but none of that ever, from the thousands of hours of footage that was gone through to make Our War, we never showed the squaddies with their trousers around their ankles and arsing around, which they do, and there's a lot of footage of, but we were showing them being professional soldiers in our factual programming. So we thought it was appropriate that we could go in a narrative way and look at the black humour that they approach the very dangerous job that they do with.
Do you think that, in a way, comedies have become harder to get started since the whole trial by Twitter thing emerged, whereby if a comedy isn't pressing buttons from the word go, then it just gets absolutely hammered, and there's been examples in recent weeks of comedies that just get trashed and aren't given the time to grow at all?
Sometimes they deserve it, sometimes they don't. It's hard.
I mean, people weren't very polite about Boomtown to bring it home.
Weren't they? Oh, right, well, whatever. It's hard. Launching comedy is hard, and that's why premiering them on iPlayer now, which is what we're going to do from now on, is a good thing for us. It gives us 7 days to create a bit more buzz about them, for fans to talk about them, and also if you watch episode 1, you can watch episode 2 straight away. And if you watch 2 episodes of things, you're more likely to watch a whole series. That's the reason we do that. We're also considering premiering whole stacks of things in a Netflix way, if you want to call it that, on BBC Three. So People Just Do Nothing will probably be completely put on iPlayer as a whole series at the beginning of the year and aired later on next year. So there are different ways of easing the audience into comedies. But yeah, putting an audience straight on BBC One, a comedy straight on BBC One, is the biggest possible glare ever. BBC Three is a slightly smaller glare. I think we get a little bit more slack. People expect BBC Three to have innovative and experimental comedy. But yeah, it's hard, and that's why it's important that as a creative team, we back the things we believe in and we try and we stick with them, because eventually people find that they do love these things.
You mentioned you're going to put things out in the Netflix way. Is that... I mean, they won't be broadcast, or how's that work?
No, I
All
mean,
straight online?
we're doing it on BBC One with Peter Kay's show.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically putting
and
the
you're
whole...
doing that too?
We're going to do that with a little bit, but it's horses for courses. You pick the right shows to do the right things with. So in all of our scripted comedy, we're going to premiere it 7 days in advance on iPlayer. And then with some series, we might put the whole thing up on iPlayer a significant amount of time before it's linear broadcast, to allow there to become talk and discovery, because comedy is often about discovery. People like to feel that they've discovered things for themselves rather than being rammed down their throats and told, this is funny. That's you know, we're playing with the different ways of getting our creative, other people's, our writers and directors' creative ideas to the audience. We're trying as many different ways as we can.
But potentially that's a big change for your model, in that if that works, then one can imagine a scenario where you say, well, why not put everything up on the internet and go fully Netflix?
Well, there's, you know, in X amount of years in the future, when IPTV is the way that it's delivered, then that's effectively what you could be doing. You could broadcast entire schedules days in advance. There will always be a premiere moment, though. There'll always be a moment when it goes live, and also people look for curation, and that's why channels are important. If you get a comedy from BBC Three, I think, or a factual piece from BBC Three, you know the attributes it will probably have. If it was from BBC Four, you'd imagine you come at it with a different set of preconceptions. So that's why channels are incredibly important and are there to help you navigate.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've faced in the last year. The most obvious one is the DQF cuts. Can you just say something about how difficult that's made your job?
Well, it's not easy.
And what was your budget? It was down 10%?
20%.
20%.
Nearly, which is a big cut, but we phased it over 3 years. We took some action really early to sort of lessen the blow by removing pre-watershed commissioning. We took our dramas down to 1 drama a year. We've actually managed to resecure some funding so that can go back up to 2 a year from next year. But it just focuses you and makes you prioritise. And on BBC Three, the majority of the money that we spend goes on comedy and the factual programming, and we have a bit of drama and some sport as well. But most of it is we prioritise on those areas.
And is the danger that when you go back to whichever bigwigs decide these things, and they say, well, look, you've grown your audience 5% this year with 20% less money, so hey, we're onto a good thing, let's cut it another 20%. How do you stop that circle downwards?
I think people are sensible and grown up about this, and everyone realises that serendipity is a wonderful thing, and you're not going to get that if you cut and cut and cut, because if you only focus on things you think are going to work, you're going to sort of inherently reduce risk taking. And being BBC Three is all about risk taking. It's about throws that if people, you said people didn't like Boomtown. Good. I'd rather have a go at trying to sort of crash 2 genres together than to just sort of make another sketch show that will be mediocre. It's much more fun to try different things, to try Bluestone, because it's going to be difficult. Well, let's try and do it.
Do you miss having an HD channel? Does that make any difference to your viewers? Because obviously during the Olympics you're on what was BBC HD, that's become BBC 2 HD now. You'd imagine your audience expects to see things in HD, and BBC 3 doesn't have HD.
By the end of the year we will have an HD variant for BBC 3. Hurrah, finally. It should have been there a while ago. Okay. Our audience are the early adopters. They're technically very savvy. They expect this sort of thing. So, but yeah, by the end of the year, done.
And talking about early adopters, let's talk a little bit about online. Take us through what you do online. Feed My Funny, BBC Drama, BBC Three Drama. Yeah. Tell us what the offering is.
There are 3 major talent initiatives that are primarily exclusive. Well, they start online. So there's comedy feeds, which are call them pilots, for want of a better word. Comedy pilots. They can be of varying lengths. They don't have to be the traditional sort of 30-minute pilots. They can be sort of. They need to prove they're a long-form idea, but so sort of 10, 15 minutes plus. Can be anything from sitcoms, comedy end shows. So last year in 2012, We did I think 8, 9 of them, and from that we were commissioned Impractical Jokers to series and People Just Do Nothing to series. This year we've just premiered the latest 8, and there are ongoing discussions about ones of those that can go to series. So it's a great incubator for comedy talent and trying things in different ways, different lengths, different types of comedy. So that's a really important one. That marries up with Live at the Electric, which is our on the linear channel, a new talent show as well. Then in Factual, we've got the Fresh scheme, which is an amazing scheme. We've just launched it online, which is then so young filmmakers can send their films in. I think they have to be 5 to 10 minutes long, and then they will be curated by really well-known directors, lots of tips and hints about how to make films on there, and the best of them will probably be comped up and put onto air. We also, as part of the Fresh scheme, we commission 6 one-hour full documentaries that go at 9 o'clock on BBC Three from first-time directors every year, minimum of 6. We don't say it's at least 6. We'll commission more if there are enough great ideas, and we just announced the 6 of those that we're doing, which will be airing in January, which is a huge range of weird and wonderful to moving and emotional stories. And then lastly, we'd start in drama. We're making 3 short dramas a year as well from now, every 2 years from now on as well.
And the accusation would be that this is trying to get content on the cheap. It's sort of a version of crowdsourcing. How do you...
It's not crowdsourcing because it's not. Literally, it's professionally made. It's not on the cheap. I can definitely assure you of that. The comedy pilots, all of the pilots, all of those sorts of shows, they're all funded at the appropriate levels because we want good directors. Adam, who directs Some Girls, is probably making a pilot for us for this set of comedy feeds with the passion project he's got about puppets. It's a great opportunity for creativity, is what they are, and also nurturing younger people who might want to be filmmakers, especially in the documentary area with Fresh.
And does that mean the licence payer is getting the value for money they deserve in this scheme if all the talent is coming in from outside?
Hopefully, yes, because we've already proved it's working. The Fresh scheme has produced amazing directors like Rob Leach, who directed My Brother the Islamist. He's now gone on to do other things on BBC 1 and 3. We're doing a follow-up with him on that as well. The comedy feeds I've already explained we've had people in them who've gone on to series, and lots of writers who then start writing other things. It's a talent pipeline. It's about being appropriate at the right time. You don't, as we were saying earlier, it's very hard launching new things, be it comedy, be it factual. So doing it slowly but surely and having these schemes is really important for BBC Three.
And with drama, there's so little of it. 2 years, 6 half hours. You were saying, are you just paying lip service to drama? Is there any point? Why don't you just forget drama altogether and put the money into the things that you're doing well with?
Well, remember, those writers can then go and write across the whole range of BBC drama. It's not just BBC Three. And on BBC Three, we're going to have 2 dramas a year, which, it doesn't sound amazing, but 2 dramas feels for me that you can have a strategy behind that. You can have, a tackle sort of... In the Flesh is coming back as a 6-part series next year. That is very much a kind of a supernatural drama, if you will. We can look for our other one to be more of a relationship-based drama, perhaps. But it gives us the opportunity to actually try out some new things. And new writers need places to go and to be funded to write and to have their shows made and work with really good producers and directors. That's how they get better.
One thing I always wondered, did the BBC Trust, who I picture being sort of old greying men somewhere in the sky, do they get all this online stuff? Is it just a box that they need to see ticked, or do you have to justify what you're doing to them?
We have to go and see them occasionally, and they ask questions, and they're normally quite interesting, pertinent questions. What they want more than anything when I've been to see them is for me to guarantee to them that we are pushing the boundaries and we are trying new things and being dangerous. And they always say, okay, Revolution we televise is great, Bluestone's great, do more. And that's great to have that challenge pushed back at you.
Just before we throw it open to the audience, a few questions about yourself as a commissioner. There's been some recent pieces in the press talking about commissioning in the UK, and the implication, some of the complaints have been, a lot of the people commissioning are sort of men in suits who've never made a programme. Now, that accusation could be levelled at you.
Yeah.
How do you don't come from a production background, how do you answer it?
I think great creative people should be making great programmes, and my job and the commissioning team's jobs, who are mostly from programme-making backgrounds, is to help them and facilitate that, not to get in the way. I'm there also as the guardian of a brand and the editor of a channel to ensure that we stand for certain things, experimentation, innovation, and Britishness being them, and that we have a sort of a unified tone of voice about what we do. It is not just a disparate outlet for anyone to 16-year-olds to get this funny thing on, or I filmed this sort of documentary. It's about being a quality controller and making sure that the best stuff comes through.
And just to put this one to bed, did you go for the BBC One controller job when it came up? I heard you actively removed yourself from the field, is that right?
Yeah, I thought it was really important just to say that I didn't want that job at that time.
Yeah.
Because I think the speculation around these sorts of jobs is unhelpful. And I love BBC Three, and it is a really fun place to work, and I didn't have any inclination to go for that job.
Because obviously the thing is, with a channel that's for 16 to 34, you're obviously a bit older than that now, and there comes I believe, there comes a point where you might say, well, how can a mid-30-something man be a 29-year-old man, how can he be making the choices? How would he understand his audience?
Well, it's not that I'm not there directing everything, I'm not writing everything. You're the editor, and you're trying to set a tone across what you do. You don't have to, you try to prove the very best that you can through research and and get to know as much about your audience as you can, and especially about the technology that our audience are using and how they consume, which is very different to older generations in terms of, but what they are consuming is great ideas and content. It's all about the content that you make, which is the first starting place. Is this you're there to sort of judge, is it a good idea? Can the person who's pitching it to me make it? Those two things go hand in hand, and that's basically what I do, and you can do that at any age.
Okay, we're just going to run through a few preview clips of what you've got coming up for the next year, and then we'll throw it wide open.
Oh, hello. Just come to deliver the stained glass window for Tony.
You're not fitting it in delivering it?
I mean, I could just stand out here and do it from... It's more about me getting up there to measure it against the... Have you got one? Oh, brilliant. Okay, thanks. Thanks very much. It's just to measure it against the thing, really. Yeah.
Look at me, look at my face. I've got C.
Ah, yes! Jonathan, I got D. By one mark. And Mr. C.
Come here, just here. I've got an A.
What?
Oh
I was scared. I was a scared kid. I didn't set out to hurt anybody. Not like that.
Killing me is not going to give anyone the peace that they're looking for. All it's going to do is continue the cycle of violence.
It's a sense of relief that he's going to be gone, and that's going to be taken care of.
The sun represents Anthony himself, because his nickname was Sunshine, because he always lit up the room.
As she answered the door of her apartment, he set her on fire.
He had a gunshot to his head, right between his eyes.
Hope is a wonderful thing, but never lie to yourself.
This is bringing back some memories I don't like thinking about.
He was pronounced deceased at 6:56 p.m.
I don't think I'm gonna die tomorrow. I don't believe that at all.
There is nothing left standing in the way. Now a Cherokee County man is going to die from murder, sexual assault, and kidnapping.
Excuse. Very good.
Another cheery one.
So do you want to just finish up by saying what those clips say about the future direction of BBC Three?
I think with the documentary and documentary series with Call Centre and people like us. We've shown that we can do these amazing documentaries, giving a voice to our audience. Our current affairs now, I think we've got a centre of gravity of real substance to what we do in our current affairs, and that's really important. They are meaty topics. The seasons are really important. So that Life and Death Row will be the centrepiece of the Justice season. Teaching Impossible is a documentary following new teachers who are fresh graduates from the best universities in the UK, given 6 weeks training, and that's it, straight into the job. So Teach First is the scheme. And that's an amazing, and we follow them for a whole year. I think it's really important with the factual programming that we are spending huge amounts of time with our subjects, and we are properly making really amazing films by the best filmmakers. Our current affairs have got real substance to them. We're doing quick turnarounds on things like Pistorius, Cleveland. We've done things about Afghanistan. Stacey Dooley this week just did nearly peaked at 1 million viewers doing a thing about a show about new drug frontiers. So lots of foreign affairs, current affairs being covered by the channel. We've got a really substantive weight to what we're doing and a really creative body of work that I think is being delivered to the audience in an interesting way that means they actually engage with it and gets young people into these areas. And we can only do that by also having Family Guy and great comedy and really good entertainment as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's get some questions from the audience whilst I try to work this. There's a gentleman.
We can just take it. Should we just take it?
It says 10% of battery. There's a gentleman there.
Yes, thanks for everything.
That's
I'm
right,
from
no
Norwegian television, and we're working on getting the young people in. I'm wondering, your target is 1634, but you actually reach that target. Is it a success compared to, for example, BBC One?
Well, BBC One reaches virtually all of the UK every week. So just as being a even bigger channel, they reach even more 1634s. EastEnders is the biggest young television show in the UK.
But like a percentage of your viewers?
Yeah, yes, our average age is about 30, I think, 30, whereas BBC One's is about 55.
And this is also on the hard factual stuff?
Yeah, across the whole channel. That's the average across the whole channel, yeah. And the great thing about BBC Three and having a show like Family Guy means we can show a documentary about Northern Ireland and the peace process there and the continuing troubles at 9 o'clock, and we show it again later that night after Family Guy. It can get 300,000, it gets 500,000 at 9, and then it gets another 300,000 at half midnight, who are predominantly young, because Family Guy is an amazing young show, and BBC Three post 11 o'clock gets a 20% young share, blah, 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 blah.
Thank you.
But yes, we're doing well. Thank you for the question.
There's a gentleman here, and then we'll come to you.
Hi, Zai, Jake from Broadcast Magazine. Just wondered that you said you'd managed to secure a bit of extra investment for the channel. Is that purely for another drama? And if so, why was that important?
It is specifically for a drama, and it is that will come online next year. And it's just, I think having one drama isn't a strategy. Having two is. And that's why it means the channel can have a meaningful go at creating more hits in the drama. Because we've had such an amazing success rate with things like Being Human, In the Flesh, I think was amazing. So that's why it's really important. The drama can really define the channel. Yeah, they can be really big, important shows for you if you get them right.
And there was a guy up at the back there.
Hi, my name's Ian Henderson. I'm a young person, obviously. I'm 18, and I think, I don't know, some stuff seems quite English, you know what I mean? Like, for me as a young Scot, would you think of doing more scripted Scottish comedy, like, aimed at young people?
I look at we'll consider basically every sort of scripted show we're given. The comedy team read them all. If they think they're right, they come to us. We re-showed Gary Tank Commander on BBC Three. The Bad Adults is made by the comedy unit in Scotland. I know it's not got a particularly Scottish voice, but it's made by a Scottish production team. I'm talking to Greg McHugh about things. We're absolutely open for those sorts of shows, but it's about being right for the audience.
Is there anything specific you're looking for at the moment?
Across the channel, it's all about finding things that are right for that that audience. So I try not to be too prescriptive about it. It's easier to say probably less in the workplace in terms of documentary. We've got a lot of there. In terms of comedy, don't go near schools. We've got 2 very good big ones in schools. I'd quite like to crack science on the channel. We haven't cracked it yet, and so I'm quite interested in finding probably people who can deliver science to our audience. That's probably the basic ones at the moment.
Okay. This gentleman here.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question about bad adults and studio sitcoms, but it just hit me that BBC Three recently did by US drama Orphan Black, which is on BBC America. Can I ask when that's going to premiere?
That will be on this autumn in October. Scheduler? Just before October. 2 weeks on Friday. There you go. 2 weeks on Friday. And I believe it's also premiering on the iPlayer. Yeah, it's good as well.
This lady here.
Any other schedule information I'm happy to provide.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Smoking Pony. I just wanted to ask you, with your fresh scheme, do you team your first-time directors with indies?
We do pair people up so they can come in with ideas, and then we sort of try to. Elliot Reed runs that scheme, and I think what he tries to do is give people some options of people to talk to, because it's all about the director deciding that they work with people they can get on with, they want to work with, and that's their decision, not ours. Normally they come into us, mostly come in with a production company already, actually, but we'd happily do that as well for the right idea.
Thank you.
There's time for one more question. I feel duty bound to use this, and the one I'm going to pick is, are you gunning for Channel 4, given their ratings are so poor at the moment?
It's not necessarily that we're going up to meet them. It's their. I've mentioned Channel 4 in the past, and I do that in terms of that's one of the only places I can compare the kind of content we make on BBC Three. The amount of original comedy we make is probably more than them, actually, and the types of factual we make, they're the only kind of comparator in terms of quality, and I think we do stuff that is as good, if not better, than them.
Okay, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for coming, and
Thank you.
big round of applause for Zai Bennett.